Please welcome to the stage Jill Vitale Awesome from Christian Living Communities, Anita Holmes from White Sands, La Jolla, Flo Creighton from the Terraces of Los Gatos, and Naomi Beatty from Life's Garden for today's resident panel.
All right, we've got 45 minutes on the clock. Place your bets, will John last that long? I am so looking forward to this conversation. We're going to go down the line. I'm going to ask everyone to just introduce themselves, your name, where you live, how long you've lived in the Human Good community. Before we do that, a big shout out to my friend and colleague, Jill Vitale Awesome. Jill, we're so honored to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Jill is one of the people I turn to for inspiration, for advice, for true leadership of the next generation of what it means to be senior housing and services. And I know there was a time yesterday due to weather, it was iffy if we were going to get you, and I'm so glad we did. So thank you for making the trip. We're glad to have you here. And Anita, without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I'm Anita Holmes. I've been a resident at White Sands, La Jolla since January 2013, a very reluctant arrival, I must say, because I was much too young to move into a community. And but my husband thought it would be a good idea since he's a lot older. And I grumbled for the first year, and then somebody saw some potential on the nominating committee and said, why don't you run for the resident council? So I've been the president of the resident council now since 2017. And since 2018, I've been chair of the Human Good Resident Council. And the reason I've been so involved is all about community and what I saw as I began to live in a community and what it meant to be part of a community, the first time since college.
Wow. Flo?
I'm Flo Creighton, and my background is in health education and as a licensed clinical social worker offering psychotherapy. And I've been at the Terraces of Los Gatos for going on 7 years. I was somewhat reluctant as well. And I think it was the second week I was there, I was tapped on the shoulder by one of the other residents and said, "We've got plans for you." And I said, "Give me a year." I'm the president of the Residents Council. I'm also the representative to the Human Good Residents Council, and I have my fingers in many pies at the Terraces of Los Gatos.
I'm Naomi Beatty. I moved to California in 2010 from Ohio. In 2012, I moved into Life's Garden in Sunnyvale, California. At the time I moved in, I was not aware that I was the only Black person there. And I must say that I was treated with so much respect and love that Life's Garden is home to me. It has been a wonderful place the years that I've been there. I am secretary of the resident council. I volunteer outside of the community at the 2 different senior centers. And I also volunteer at my church and at the community center, at the senior centers. When I go there, you know, I get so much love from there. The other day I was there for a special event, and one of the seniors came in, and I had not seen him for a while, and he said, "Oh, I bet you don't remember my name." And I had to think, because it had been a while. And I did remember his name. And he was so happy. He gave me the biggest hug you could imagine. And you know, that just made me feel so good to get love from, you might say, a stranger that I did not know. But in doing the volunteering work that I do, I get more out of it than I give. And it is just a wonderful feeling, you know. And at Life's Garden, I volunteer there. The same thing, love. It's a community, it's a family,
It's a family.
and I enjoy every bit of it.
Wonderful. Jill?
Hi, everyone. Jill Vitale Awesome. So I'm the CEO of Christian Living Communities, and we are a nonprofit, multi-site organization in Denver. And I'm so honored and thrilled to be with all of you, especially on this panel with my co-panelists here. And you know, this topic, the whole day today actually really makes me think about the way we view aging, what Sarah talked about, and the way that we view aging, how that has impacted aging services, and the way we all think about things. And so the journey, so Christian Living Communities, and I myself as a leader have always had this, for years, this resort model, this customer service model of providing care and services, right? Perfecting our services and amenities, seeing residents as consumers or customers, and kind of, if you come here, here's all that we shall do for you. And as we really started in my organization looking at exactly what Sarah was talking about, what's really going on in society and our own minds about aging, we really had this realization that approach is really rooted in negative beliefs about aging, right? When we're older, we have nothing left to give. All we can expect is to sit back and have things done for us. It perpetuates ageism at the same time, and it's actually the exact opposite of what the evidence shows, that we need to live a long and healthy life. And so I always ask people, if you find evidence that a life of leisure is what we need to live a healthy life, send it to me, because I've never been able to find that. Right? We need meaning for roles, we need purpose in our lives, we need belonging. And so what we've really been focusing on is an age-positive approach, which is what we call our citizenship approach. So in vast contrast, rather than here's all we shall do for you, is if you live in one of our communities, what gifts and talents and passions can you bring to make this community stronger and better? And it's residents and team members working together for the good of the community. And I'll be quiet in a minute here, because this isn't about me. But I'll say this morning, when you were all talking about that crisis situation with the fire, where everybody came together and figured things out, and residents took care of each other, and team members everybody worked together. Imagine harnessing that power in everyday life, right? And so that's really what this is about, is community building. So I'm thrilled to be part of this discussion today.
You phrased that so perfectly. I've got to make sure this didn't get lost on the audience, and it certainly didn't get lost on me. What if we could harness that energy, and that wasn't the anomaly, that was just the ordinary course of business? And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about today, is how do we harness that energy? Because I view it as the single biggest asset that we are utterly wasting and ignoring. We're just not using it. We're not working in a partnership that we need. And when that happens, true magic happens, true magic results. And that's as true in affordable housing as it is in our life plan communities. We need engagement and cooperation. So,
absolutely. And I would love to hear from all of you. Why do you do what you do at your communities? I mean, you don't have to, right?
Correct.
So why do you do it?
Because we enjoy it, and it's more blessed to give than to receive, you know?
Yes.
And if you can just get a smile from somebody, because you don't know what that person have gone through during the day, and sometimes just to give a good morning, a pleasant smile, can mean the world to somebody.
Absolutely.
I feel like I have some things I can contribute, and that's important to me.
I agree. There's a lot you can contribute. There's a lot that you can do. We had an event for 47 new residents last week at White Sands, and I put up pictures of them and bios of them. And there's some very impressive bios. But I said, you know, when you come to a community like this, that was you, but we don't know the old you. You can be whatever you want to be now that you're here. And we actually have 51 committees the residents run. They could They can try something totally different. They can get out of their comfort zone. They can find something that's meaningful. They can just meet new friends. But it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself. And I think that's a wonderful thing to be able to offer and to be able to try out.
I love the other thing that I picked up on when you said that is, so often we believe that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? And we are who we were. Like, we focus so much on what was your history and what was your past. But what you're talking about is not just that, but who do you want to become, right? And that's really exciting.
Right, because when we have a memorial service for somebody and people come in from their past and they talk about this person, you say, who was that? I never knew that person. I knew some totally different person,
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about some of the examples of how do the people that live in your community, and the other thing is team members and residents working together, right, to solve challenges. And we often say in my organization, is this really a leadership challenge or is this a community challenge? And if it's a community challenge, then why are the formal leaders the only ones trying to figure it out, right? And so what are some examples of ways that the people that live in your communities work together?
At last,
Go ahead, please.
okay. I'm sorry, but I love Life's Garden.
Please go. I'm not going to argue with a garden.
Well, at Life's Garden, we have a wonderful team, okay? And whatever problems we have, say if your refrigerator isn't working or whatever the case may be, they're right on it instantly, okay? You don't have to worry about giving a second notice or what have you. Our maintenance team is great. They're part of the family, okay? Our staff, everybody. They are wonderful. And like I said, I've been there 11 years. And if you'd say to me, what kind of problems have you had? I would just sit here and say.
So I have a little follow-up question for you. So
Okay.
It sounds like you have an amazing team.
Okay, correct.
We all know that there are challenges with finding and keeping great people. Mm-hmm. What role do you and the people in your community, what role do you play in making it a place people want to work?
Well, like I said, I'm president, secretary of the resident council, okay? And I walk a lot within the community. So everybody sees me. I'm always walking, and always, hello, how are you?
So you take care of the team members that makes a big
Yes,
difference.
and I see them, hi, Tom, hi, Eloy.
Yep,
Yeah, I'm there.
that makes a big difference.
It does.
Absolutely.
It does. They see me all the time. Yeah.
That's great, thank you.
I thought I might tell you about some of the ways in which residents are contributing to the community. We have, of course, a wonderful community. And one of the things that makes it wonderful is that our executive director and the other lead staff, we can approach them, we can talk to them, and it's okay to bring things up. It may not always be comfortable, but it's okay. But I wanted to tell you some ways. We have everything from someone who writes birthday cards to everybody on their birthday all year long. That's her contribution. We have someone else who is involved in crocheting little animals that are put out given the holiday, whether it's Valentine's, Easter, Christmas, or other holidays. We have one shining example of a person who has transitioned from independent living into assisted living. And he was very involved with our CERT team, which is Community Emergency Response Team, when he was in independent living. Now that he is in assisted living, he is building and developing that same level of involvement on assisted living so that they are prepared for emergencies. We have just one more example, a woman who has just recently learned that she has macular degeneration in her good eye. And she's establishing a support group for other people who are struggling with this. And so there's many different levels and different ways to be engaged. And the more people seem to be engaged, the better, the happier they seem to be, because that is how we connect to each other.
Absolutely.
I'd like to just echo something that Naomi said. When COVID hit, and we were confined essentially to our apartments except for exercise, I started walking the campus driveway, and it was the only way that I could see team members and residents who were out getting their mail or walking their dogs. And I made it a point to learn everybody's name and to walk in the morning when the shifts were coming in and the afternoon when the shifts were going out. So I could just say, hi, how are you? Have a good weekend kind of thing. And it kept a connection going. And I thought that was important. I think keeping up the morale of the team members. And the other thing that when John announced that the Inclusion Council, and it was a combined of team members at various levels, I said, but where are the residents? The residents should be involved in anything that's talking about inclusion. And we are now close to getting a resident component to that council, which I'm thrilled about, because I think that it is a community, and when you watch, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what your political persuasion is, if somebody's having trouble, if somebody's sick, somebody's having a bad day, team members, residents, they rally around,
Yep.
and that's community. And so we need to capitalize on that feeling and make it more inclusive across all levels of interest and support.
Anita, I have to interrupt for just 1 minute. So great, love the story about walking around to stay connected. How many miles did you walk during COVID?
10,351.6 miles.
What?
But I wasn't counting.
And I'm guessing you weren't wearing yellow socks on any of those walks, were you?
No, but
Wow,
I did hear you say you wanted a yellow hat
Well, I like those yellow hats, and obviously I need one, so.
for the babies, but no, that was part of my physical routine. So,
In our community, our CERT group, the emergency response team, we got recruited to pick up and deliver menus. And so each of us took a building, and at least once a day, we got out of our apartment with our masks on and went door to door. And for me and my husband, it was the people that we live with in our own building. And for some people, that was the only contact they got.
Yeah.
And I know I really looked forward to doing that because I got to get out of the apartment.
Absolutely. Well, and then you think about, just like Sarah was talking about, the way we think about aging impacts our lifespan. Whether or not we have meaningful purpose in our lives does also, right? So think about what all of that does in your community. So I'm curious, what is, so you didn't know this question was coming, but this just came to me. So I'll let you think about it for a second. But what conditions are present in your community that make it possible, that make you want to participate? So if you think about if there are communities out there and they're like, we don't really have this happening right now as much as we want, or as much as we'd like it to, or this is something we'd like to create more of, what conditions need to be present? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
everybody that comes to White Sands, I've been to 13 out of 20, what are we now, 21, 20 communities. They all have the same feeling. The same family feeling, the same community feeling. They look different. Their residents are drawn from different economic and educational and international areas sometimes, but they all have the same feeling of family. And the other thing, at least at White Sands, the people are so laid back and friendly. people remark about that. They go to visit a place like the V, and they say it's kind of stuffy and formal. But White Sands, it's just, no, we don't even have dress
You just
codes.
called it right out, Anita. That's great. see, I can't say that, but I'm glad you did.
Well, I mean, you can't even get your car at the V.
Yeah.
And we had a resident who moved here from Palo Alto V, and he said, I can take a cookie out of the dining room. You couldn't do that at the V. He was just so thrilled to be able to do that. So,
See, it's the little things.
That helps people integrate very quickly into the community, and I think that's important.
Absolutely.
Anita at White Sands has done such a great job of pulling together the life plan communities into the Human Good Residents Council. And as a result of that, we've been able to identify some of the key issues that we experience across the different life plan communities. And John has really supported us in identifying key staff that work with us so we can address some of those issues.
So you have to have leadership that wants this and supports it, right? And it sounds like a friendly, a family atmosphere where it's safe,
Yes.
where people want to, where you're well known and people want to participate.
Sometimes it takes a little more push from from the resident side. I mean, I think
shove is probably the word you're looking for.
No, but human good, becoming human good, and the merging of the organizations was a real game changer because we were able to we got the best leadership team from the two communities, and then we added the people from Presby's. So we've got a fabulous leadership team, and we're in a much stronger financial position than we would have been if we'd stayed as individual things. And then we have all of these resident leaders from our communities that we've been forging together into a voice. And we brought a model where the residents actually sat down at the table, invited the leadership team and the board to come and talk to us and hear our concerns and tell us what they were doing. And that's made for a much more collaborative environment to work in. And we don't always get everything we ask for, but we tell them what we're concerned about, and we're forming groups and teams to tackle those issues together.
Well, and you and Flo both referenced something I think is important, which is having a structure in place that also facilitates that conversation and that partnership. So yes, leadership on the team side, leadership on the resident side, but also a structure can help facilitate that interaction and that conversation. And I think that's what we're still building and learning and improving.
It's a process, and one of the things our executive director has started doing is including residents in interviewing key staff who might come into the community. And I think it's been a successful experience for the residents as well as for the staff.
And the prospective new team member, right? Coming in, that sends a really important message. I think that's a wonderful practice.
And at Life's Garden, we have a very diverse community. But so now on our resident council, we're including, different nationalities. And it's working out wonderful, And we have birthday parties every month for people to come to the birthday parties. We have all kinds of events all during the year. Every morning you can get up, start off with an exercise class, get these muscles going, when you first get up. And it's just been wonderful to have all of the different nationalities joining together as a family.
Yep. Naomi, you bring up such a great point that I want to make sure this doesn't get lost either, which is we've heard a lot of people reference, and I often talk about the fact that you can know within 5 minutes of setting foot in a community whether you're in a successful community or not. You can you can just tell it immediately. It's a visceral reaction. And what you both referenced is you walk into one of our communities, they all have a sense of family, and they're all different. They're all different, but you get that sense of community, belonging, and family. And all I would say is, and Naomi, I'm so glad you spoke up about this, That's the very same dynamic you experience walking into our 100 affordable housing communities. You walk in the door and it's vibrant, it's connected, it's family. You get the sense of the team members. You can watch how they interact with residents how they interact with each other. It's the very same feeling, even though it's, again, a different structure to the community. The family relationship and the connection is absolutely the same.
And I think it's very important. I made a point of both at White Sands and at Human Good Resident Council of exposing us to the affordable housing side of Human Good, because that's such a huge self-supporting element. And if we've toured several of the Life Plan communities. We've also toured some of our affordable housing communities. And from somebody who's grew up in Philadelphia, where we had these just horrible, unsightly projects, and you come to the communities, and they are just gorgeous.
Yep.
They really are beautiful, and the feeling is the same.
Yep.
Very, very, very warm, very family, and they're lovely. And there are many more. They have 10%. They have 1/10 the number of people taking care of the residents that we have in the Life Plan communities.
Absolutely. And you think about, John, when you were showing the graph earlier about the aging population and the shrinking
Labor.
younger population, if we continue, this just makes me think about a community that doesn't have a lot of paid staff. If we continue to think about older people, all of us as we age, as, again, recipients of care and services, not able to give anything back, that's not sustainable.
No.
Right, and it's not, and so thinking about, I think even taking it further with how do we, as you said, John, harness the lived experience, the momentum, all of the gifts of the people that live in our communities, can we create a more affordable model?
Yep.
It's kind of an interesting
And a more
thing to think
sustainable
about.
model. It's interesting as I look at the business challenges that we've encountered just in the last 3 years, but just business challenges we encounter day to day running a business like this. There is not one single issue that I face that we don't have a resident somewhere who has faced that same issue successfully. We got 15,000 people out there. I guarantee you there is somebody who has dealt with every problem we're facing, and we need to find a way to tap into those resources to make us a stronger organization in every way possible.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
I thank you for bringing up the homelessness issue. I was really struck by the 2.5 seats present for 10 people, and I felt very humbled, and I thought about how grateful I am to be able to be in a Life Plan community where I have a community and I have a home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are there things that, this is another question you didn't know I was going to ask, but are there things that happen in your communities where the people that live there are not just making your community that you live in stronger and better, but improving the lives of people in the surrounding area? That's another big opportunity.
Well, that's what I'm doing when I go
Yeah,
to
you
the
absolutely
center.
are. Yes, you are.
Right.
Yes, you are. So you're
Yes.
making a big impact in the ripple
Absolutely.
effect.
Right, and I'm at 2 different senior centers. One is in Sunnyvale, the other is in Mountain View. So I do it. And also, I'm a part of a knitting class, and we knit for the homeless. Scarves, slippers,
Yep.
hats, for the homeless. Because we get a lot of yarn donated, and we take this donated yarn
Wow.
and knit for the homeless. And I do that one day a week, every week.
Wow.
Great.
We have a resident and a team member who go down to feed the homeless every Monday, and they sometimes other residents go along, and they always collect things from residents and take them down. I must say I don't focus too much on what people are doing outside the community, because I focus so much on what's happening in our community or what's happening across our communities, and we're trying to get people to. One of the big benefits of our resident council is that we can share experiences across communities as how we do things. So how do you run your team member appreciation campaign, or what are you doing in terms of climate change on your campus? Or how are you working the community engagement platform in your community, and how do you use this cube or that cube? So there's a lot of cross fertilization of ideas, and if somebody has a question, we shoot around a survey and find out what everybody else is doing, and that's been very valuable, I think, for the communities.
Big
to share.
ripple effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
That you're having with that work.
Yep. So I've got to add to that the resident that you referenced who goes down to feed the homeless every Monday. I walk into the community one day, and that's Lois Ream.
Right.
And Lois spies me. She says, "John, I want your socks." Like, whoa, what? I'm going to feed the homeless. We bring them socks and we bring them food. So she made me take off my socks and donate my socks. We did launder them before they went out to the homeless. But
There's
Now
the answer
that's
to the yellow
involved.
socks.
she takes this work very seriously. So if you're walking into White Sands on a Monday morning, bring an extra pair of socks with you.
And she's also been working on, because she's got macular degeneration, she's been working on, we had a first low vision fair amongst the communities at White Sands, and which we'd hope to spread to other communities. And she's been working on how to integrate, urging Human Good to get some kind of integration with their engagement platform that could be usable for people who are vision impaired.
Yep.
So
That is
there's lots of individual residents pushing and shoving in various directions, as
Yep.
well as
absolutely.
groups.
We get it from all sides, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, that's why Human Good exists.
That's
Human
why
Good
we
exists
exist.
for the residents.
Yep.
Yep.
And so the residents,
Great.
if you don't listen to the residents and hear what their concerns are, like mental health.
Yep.
When COVID started, after a year, I had all the communities gather stories of what's the impact of COVID. And some of them were just devastating. People had lost spouses that they couldn't go see because they were in the health center, they weren't allowed in there. People felt isolated and just completely cut off. They didn't have any way of connecting to anybody. And then there were other people who said, gee, I've always wanted to write my memoir. So I'm going to take this time and I'm going to do that. I wanted to learn to play the piano. So you had different sides, but it brought out a mental health concern that is still there, and Flo is now going to be heading up a small group of team members and residents to see how we can bring resources into our various communities to tackle the ongoing effects, both team members and residents, of COVID.
Yeah, there's a lot to work on, and I love that you are working on it together, right? That's what community does. It's not, you're a team member and this is what you do, and I live here, and it's really coming together, and that's such a great strength. When I was a community executive director and we really were starting to drive this culture, I had one of the elders that lived in the community said, well, there's this person used to be a teacher, and so she naturally has this role in the community, and this person has leadership skills, and so this person runs the resident council. And she's like, I don't know, I want to give back, but I don't know how to give back. And so we really sat down and talked about her gifts and her talents, and she finally realized, she was she made rum cakes. Really good rum cakes with a lot of rum. But she would make those for our team members, like the housekeeping department, if they were having a really bad week. And she found her way. There's some other people who are like, my job is to make other people smile here, and that's my gift to this community. So what advice do you come across that with other people, your neighbors in the community that maybe don't see themselves as being able to give something back? And if so, how do you help them get there? I know you were tapped on the shoulder, right? Do you tap other people on the shoulder?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did was put together a quilting group. And I'm a sewer, and my best friend is a quilter. And together we set it up so that people could come in who had no sewing or quilting experience, and they could take the squares, put them together in whatever design they wanted, and then Betsy and I sewed them up. And I think it was 12 quilts we made, and we've donated those to those who are in end-of-life situations.
It's beautiful.
And the families and the residents are really responsive to that. But it sparked people to come in and make a contribution in a way they thought, well, I can't do that. I'm not artistic. And you don't have to be. You just need to play with these squares.
Yep, absolutely. A safe way for somebody to kind of get into giving back.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Any other thoughts?
Okay, at Life's Garden, we have an activities director, and she's amazing. So here I go again. But she knows the resident better than the resident council. So she sort of puts people in places where she knows they fit the most.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Anita, any thoughts that you would have?
Not in that line. No.
Yeah, I think that, and I don't know if this is, by the way, I've been so impressed sitting, I told John, I don't work for Human Good, and I'm like super inspired and excited. This has been a great day. But I think you may already be doing this, but I think one of the most powerful questions, and you can ask whether somebody's coming to tour the community or moving in, or team members. What are the gifts, passions, skills, talents that you can bring to this community? How might you make this community stronger and better? And I don't know if you were asked that when you moved in. When we ask people that, at first they're like, what are you talking about? Don't you know I'm 85? And it really, but just asking that question starts to shift that perception of aging, right? Like we've got to start shifting that, and people start going, no, wait a minute. I do have things, or I might not have this skill, but I've always wanted to learn this, and I could learn this and then help the community. And it really is self-perpetuating. It's such an exciting, when you really harness all that, that's where the magic is.
When I do Right Start with some of the new team members that I do with Lillian, and I say, age doesn't define old, because we have so many people in their 80s and 90s, and even we've got, our pastor's 100 and will be 103, our chaplain 103 in June. He still does services and still visits people every day in the health center. So it has nothing to do with what you can contribute to the community, how old you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And everyone's got a gift that they can share that makes us better. So.
Right.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And I would just, as we close, I would just, Sarah, I don't know where Sarah is in here, her talk was amazing. And so I think all of us need to do more work around understanding that and really thinking about how those perceptions of aging are impacting the way we live in communities and the way we lead communities and work in communities. So.
And age is a mindset. You're as old as you feel, you're as old as you think.
And act.
And act, absolutely, And it's a blessing to grow old with grace, dignity.
And what a perfect note on which to wrap up this panel. It is indeed a blessing to grow old. And once again, this has just been the hit of the show here to have this conversation, because this is where Human Good comes alive. And I think between what you heard from Sarah, what we heard on this panel, as we shift how we think about aging, as we shift the language, as we shift our understanding, we find new models of working together. And when we find those, we find the true power of community. And when we find the true power of community, we find the true power of Human Good. So will you join me, please, in thanking our panelists one more time?